So I'm going to be presenting my master's thesis work titled Validating an LED Bulb for the Egg Laying Industry. So it's going to be quick, but hopefully a good scope of what I've done. So we got the initial idea from a previous trial that we did. So we used a non-commercial strain of birds referred to as the Smoky Joes, and we exposed them to red, green, and white light. And we noticed that birds under red and white light had a higher level of production and a higher egg number than those under green. And then we even noticed that birds under red light had a higher level of production than those under white. So we thought that this higher wavelengths of light increased production. And so what would happen to a commercial, if we had a commercial bulb that had 60% red light to try to promote production in a commercial strain of birds? So we validated this bulb with 3 trials. So the first trial that we did was a floor trial. We had 3 rooms with monochromatic red, white, and the white light was 60% red. We had 6 pens per room and 8 birds per pen, and then we used a commercial line of birds. So we noticed that for reproduction, there was no significant difference in egg production like we had seen before between the light treatments. However, we did notice that red light stimulated stronger ovarian stimulation as there was higher amounts of estradiol in birds under red light. We also noticed that birds under green light tended to use the nest box more, and we attributed this to the visual perception of birds as they see green light brighter, so maybe they felt the need to use the darker spaces within the nest boxes. And then we also noticed that birds under green light, there was a desynchronization in ovulation, so eggs were laid in both the light and the dark phase. So we attributed this to the lower wavelengths not being able to kind of coordinate between ovulation and photoperiod. We noticed that there was no difference in feed growth and feed consumption between the treatments, and we also didn't notice an effect of corticosterone, an indicator of stress. And this, just to note, their levels of corticosterone were below what's considered physiologically stressed. There was no major difference in how birds spent their time. However, we did notice a higher number of aggressive pecks in birds under 60% red light. And due to the small stocking densities, there could have just been a more aggressive hen, so it's hard to kind of correlate that to the light. The second trial we did was a cage trial, so we monitored individual production. So we had 3 rooms with 3 different light sources. We had incandescent, CFL, and then the LED was 60% red. There was 94 birds per room and 4 rows of cages per room. We noticed that the LED lights, birds under LED, had a slight delay in egg production. However, there was no difference in overall egg production and egg quality. What we did notice at this time was when birds started to lay that the birds under LED light had a slightly lower level lower body weight. So we suggested that the delay in age at first egg correlated more to reaching their sexual or their mature body weight. In this trial, we noticed that for feed and growth, that CFL and incandescent had 8 more food and were heavier than birds under LED. So suggesting that this LED light treatment, there was better feed conversion as they produced just as many eggs. And then again, we didn't notice a difference in corticosterone. We also had hydrometers outside of each of the rooms to measure energy consumption. So we noticed that the LED consumed less energy, but when we used a spectrophotometer to measure energy output, we noticed that the LED emitted more energy, even though each light source is set to 10 lux. And lastly, we have the commercial trial. So this is where we had 42,000 hens, and we just wanted to see how well the bulb did within a large-scale production system. So we found that about 60% red light increased production about 2%. The feed consumption was on the low end of what is recommended for that strain. And then there appeared to be no negative impacts on birds' health and welfare, so with body condition scores and corticosterone. So the energy savings from the bulbs, as well as the increase in production and reduction in potential feed consumption, decreases cost of production and with a high return on investment for the bulbs. And we also noticed during cleaning and disinfecting that some water got into the bulbs. So minor modifications need to be made to ensure that the bulb is sealed. So in conclusion, that we can conclude that red light, the 60% red light does stimulate the reproductive axis more efficiently, as we saw higher levels of estradiol. This may promote egg production. However, in the commercial lines of birds, management is key. And also these birds are peaking at 98, 99% production. So there's room to play with the production, but not much. They're a very high producing strain of birds. We also noticed that birds in cages have a slightly lower level of feed consumption, and there's no difference in egg number or quality. And then we also noticed that there was no adverse effects of stress and overall welfare, yet the bulbs were able to utilize less energy and emit more energy. So in the future, we want to expand our project to look at the effects of light spectrum on pullets, as well as broiler breeders and turkeys and turkey breeders. Thank you for your time. If there's any questions.